I didn't cheat. But what I did wasn't far off from it. I acted single around the right people. I let anyone and everyone flirt with me, touch me, all right in front of my husband. He stayed silent through it all, not because he was weak, but because he loved me too deeply to fight. I convinced myself that I was just being true to myself, that I was out of his league, that I was the prize, that I get to treat him that way. That was until I crossed a line at that party, until he finally stood up for himself. And now, I'm terrified I may have lost him for good. I don't remember the exact moment I stopped respecting him. It wasn't a single thing, more like a gradual erosion. Soft, quiet, invisible. Like how a shoreline vanishes under gentle waves. You don't notice it at first, and by the time you do, half the land's already gone. Owen was never supposed to be permanent. He was the safe guy, the kind one, the kind that opens the car door and texts, "Let me know you got home safe," after a first date, the kind that listens more than he speaks, the kind that plans anniversaries 6 months ahead and saves screenshots of your favorite coffee order. And somehow I married him. Everyone was surprised, even my friends. They said it in the way women do, with careful, poisoned praise. "He's sweet," they'd say, like it was a flaw. You deserve someone who challenges you. Do you ever miss, I don't know, the spark? I used to brush it off. At first, I liked being loved that deeply. I liked knowing there was someone who would never walk away, no matter how sharp my tongue got. And believe me, I tested that theory. The first time I joked about his job in front of my friends, called him my little accountant, he just laughed, kissed my cheek. He thought I was being playful, but I knew it hurt him. And when I flirted with the waiter during our anniversary dinner, lingered on compliments a little too long, gave him that look I used to save for Owen, my husband just squeezed my hand, told me I looked beautiful, like he didn't notice. Or worse, like he did, and didn't want to admit it. By the time the party invitation came, things between us had already dulled to a polite gray. It was a casual get-together. One of my college friends throwing a birthday party downtown. Music, drinks, the usual crowd of old classmates who aged out of partying but still hadn't admitted it. I hadn't seen them in years. Owen had never met most of them. But I wanted to go. I wanted to feel like me again. I wore a black dress that fit tighter than anything Owen had seen in months. Low back, high heels, gold hoops. I didn't dress for him. I knew he'd love it, of course. And he did. His face lit up when I walked out of the bedroom like I'd just stepped off a magazine cover. "You look..." He paused. "I don't even have the words," I smirked. "Try harder." He laughed. Didn't realize I wasn't joking. At the party, everything came rushing back. The old energy, the glances, the subtle compliments wrapped in jokes. People remembered me. Not as Owen's wife, just me. "Damn, you haven't aged a day," one guy said, pulling me in for a hug that lasted a few beats too long. "Still the best legs in the room," another whispered with a wink. He used to hook up with my roommate back in the day. I couldn't remember his name, but I remembered the way he looked at women. He was still doing it. I smiled, laughed, let them linger. Owen was quiet at first. He stuck close to me, offered to get us drinks. When he handed me a glass of white wine, I took it without looking at him. I was mid-laugh with two guys who clearly didn't care that he was standing right there. At some point, he disappeared into the kitchen. I didn't notice for a while. Someone turned on music. A couple of girls started dancing. Someone else shouted, "This feels like senior year all." I kicked off my heels, raised my arms, let the music pull me somewhere lighter. One guy, Matt, something with an M, grabbed my hand and spun me once. I didn't stop him. We danced for a song or two too, close to be called innocent. His hand grazed my waist. I didn't stop that either. Photos were taken. Of course they were. Someone was filming. Someone always is. But I didn't care. Not in that moment. Not while I was being watched, wanted, remembered. Then I saw Owen, standing by the kitchen doorway, holding his untouched drink. Just watching. He didn't say anything. His eyes didn't flash with anger. No jealousy, no begging. Just something. Worse, disappointment. The kind that settles in deep because it's not new. It's not a reaction. It's a realization. He saw me, really saw me, for the first time in years. And I think he realized he didn't recognize what he was looking at. I smiled like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't just spent the last hour pretending he didn't exist. "Everything okay?" I asked, walking over. He handed me his drink. "Yeah, just tired." Then he walked past me and out the front door. The ride home was so quiet it felt like a punishment. No music, no podcast, just the hum of the tires and the occasional click of the blinker. Owen didn't look at me once. He kept both hands on the wheel like the air between us was fragile. Like even glancing at me might shatter whatever thin thread was keeping him calm. I tried to fill the silence. "That party was wild," I said, smiling like I still believed I was charming. "Felt like college again." He nodded. Not in agreement, just acknowledgement, like a store clerk ringing up your total. I waited a few seconds. "You were quiet. Everything okay?" "I'm fine," he said, but his voice was too level. Too even. I hated when he got like this. Not angry, not yelling, just calm, detached, like I wasn't even worth the argument. And somewhere inside me, the worst part of me, that made me angry. "What?" I snapped. "You're upset because I danced? Seriously?" His fingers tightened just slightly on the steering wheel. That was the only clue. "I'm not upset that you danced," he said, eyes still on the road. "I'm upset that you forgot I was there." That shut me up. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't accuse. Didn't list names or bring up the way Matt or Mark or whatever his name was held onto my hips. He didn't mention the drinks, the touching, the laughing at his expense. He didn't have to. His disappointment was so quiet, it echoed. When we got home, he didn't storm out or slam a door. He walked into the bedroom, grabbed his duffel bag from the closet, and started folding clothes into it. I stood in the doorway, watching him. "What are you doing?" I asked, even though I knew. He didn't look up. "I'm going to my brother's, for a few days." My chest tightened. I hadn't expected that. A fight, sure. Cold shoulders, maybe. But not this. Not him leaving. Owen didn't leave. That was the one thing I could always count on. "You're overreacting," I said, arms crossed. "I didn't cheat on you." He finally stopped folding. Looked up at me for the first time all night. "That's the bar now?" he asked softly. "Just don't cheat and everything else is fair game?" I didn't know what to say, because he wasn't wrong. And the truth is, I hadn't cheated. Not technically. Not physically. But I'd let men hold me like they could. I'd laughed when they called him lucky. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't correct them. I'd played both sides of the room while pretending Owen was invisible. I thought that made me clever. Desired. Still in control. Instead, I looked like someone who was too cowardly to leave, but too selfish to stay. "I'm just tired of being humiliated by the person I love," he said. And then he zipped the bag. That line. God. It was so quiet. So final. He didn't shout it. Didn't make it into some dramatic last word. But it landed in my chest like a weight. Because I realized I'd spent so long pushing boundaries, I never stopped to notice when I crossed one that couldn't be undone. He left without slamming the door. No threats, no ultimatums, just silence. I was too proud to chase after him. I knew for sure he'd be back. After all, I was the prize. I was the one who settled. The next morning, I woke up in an empty bed. His side of the closet looked hollow, a few shirts left hanging, as if even his absence had been careful and polite. I checked my phone. Nothing. But the notifications rolled in from everyone else. Photos, videos, stories tagged with my name. One reel had already racked up nearly 8,000 views. Someone had posted a clip of me dancing, laughing in another guy's arms, drink in hand, hair down, mouth wide open like I didn't have a husband watching from the corner. The caption? Still the baddest in the room. I kept scrolling through the photos, numb fingers flicking screen after screen, each one worse than the last. At first, I saw what I wanted to see. A beautiful woman in a black dress, glowing in low light, surrounded by people, laughing, desirable, magnetic. The kind of woman people posted about because she owned the room. But then I started reading the comments, and that's when it all shifted. Her husband must be real chill to let her act like this. She was with someone else at the bar before this. Girl never changes, LOL. Damn, didn't she get married like a year ago? This is why you don't wife the hot ones. My breath caught. Was this really how I was viewed? This wasn't me. I went back through the photos. This time, I looked with different eyes. That picture of me with Marcus. Yeah, his name was Marcus. Where his hand was a little too low on my back, and my head was tilted like I was whispering. In his ear, we looked like a couple. Not strangers. Not friends. A couple. Then another. Me sitting on the arm of a couch, legs crossed toward a guy's lap, his hand resting casually on my thigh, while I sipped from my wine glass and smiled at the camera. God. It looked like he was mine, and in none of them, not a single frame, was Owen anywhere near me. If I didn't know better, I would have sworn I was single. I felt sick. But the worst part wasn't the photos. It was the fact that he saw them too. Truth is, this wasn't new. The photos weren't new. The comments weren't new. I've always been this way. For as long as I can remember. I somewhat took pride in it too. Feeling desired, wanted, the life of the party. Owen tried to talk to me previously, but I always shut him off. If you're going to be with me, you're going to have to be okay with every part of me. He'd shut up real quick. But looking back at it, I wish he'd say something. It took me this long. No. What it took was for Owen to finally stand up to my behavior, for me to realize what I've been doing. Not just to him, but to myself as well. Owen didn't block me, didn't unfollow. He didn't make a scene, didn't post anything passive-aggressive. He just let me see everything unravel in real time, because my friends tagged me in everything. And in tagging me, they tagged him too. He hadn't even been home for 12 hours before he saw a dozen people reduce our entire marriage to a punchline. And they weren't wrong to. Because in that moment, it wasn't just about how I made him feel. It was about how I made him look. I humiliated him publicly, loudly, casually, and I didn't even notice. One of the posts had a full group shot. There I was, front and center, slightly bent at the waist, one hand holding Marcus's arm, the other raised with a drink mid-toast. His head was angled toward me like he was about to whisper something in my ear. But just over my shoulder, blurry, unimportant, nearly cropped out, was Owen. Not smiling, not holding a drink, just watching. That's what broke me. Not his face, not his expression. But the fact that he was an afterthought, even in my own memories. He didn't say a word that day. No calls, no texts, nothing. But then a message came. Not from him. It was from Marcus. Hey, just saw your husband dipped early. Hope it wasn't. 'Cause of me, lol. You looked amazing last night, BTW. My mouth went dry. I stared at the message like it had fangs. Because it wasn't flirty. It wasn't even aggressive. It was familiar. That was the problem. He messaged me like it was normal. Like there were no boundaries to cross. Like what happened last night, all the touches, the dancing, the photos, meant something more to him too. Like I had offered something, whether I meant to or not. And for the first time in years, I felt dirty. I didn't reply. I deleted the message. Then I opened my texts and hovered over Owen's name. The last message I'd sent him was from earlier that night before the party. On my way down, "Can you call the Uber?" That was it. That was the last thing I said to him before I shredded his trust in front of a room full of people. I typed, deleted, typed again, finally settled on, "Can we talk?" It stayed on, delivered. No response. Checked an hour later, still nothing. Later that night, I saw that he'd removed his tagged photos from the posts. Not mine, just his. He was erasing himself, slowly, surgically, from the part of the night that included me. And for the first time since we'd met, I realized I wasn't afraid he'd yell. I wasn't afraid he'd accuse me. I was afraid he'd never say anything again. Because I didn't just hurt him. I embarrassed him. Not just this once, over the years. But now that he's gone, I finally see it. I see everything now. And I hate myself for it. So no, I never cheated. But this was betrayal too. The kind you can't clean up with, "I'm sorry." 2 days passed. No word, no response. Just that gray delivered under my message. And a house that felt like it belonged to strangers. Every room was too quiet. The silence had weight to it. I didn't realize how many of Owen's small noises filled the place. Keys in the bowl, the way he cleared his throat when reading, his soft when he liked a bite of food I made. Now it all felt hollow. I stayed home from work. I told myself it was just a personal day, but really, I just couldn't bear walking into the world like everything was okay, because it wasn't. Not even close. I kept rereading that last message I sent him. "Can we talk?" It felt so stupid now, like a paper umbrella in a thunderstorm. He deserved more. I just didn't know how to say more without sounding like I was begging or excusing. Finally, on the third night, I got a reply. No dots, no typing preview, just a sudden buzz. It was a short text. "I need space. I'm okay. Can't tell when I'll be back." That was it. "No, we need to talk. No, I forgive you." Just space and uncertainty. It was worse than yelling. Worse than rage. Because he wasn't trying to hurt me. He just didn't trust me with his presence anymore. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. It didn't feel real at first. But then the words started to sink in. Not angry, just tired. And something inside me cracked. I thought back to all the times I brushed him off, rolled my eyes, laughed when he got quiet at parties. I called it jealousy. I wore it like a compliment. Like, "See? I'm still wanted. You should be grateful." I never stopped to think that maybe he was trying. That maybe he stayed quiet not because he was weak, but because he loved me enough to swallow the hurt. Until he couldn't anymore. I thought I was fun. Magnetic. The kind of woman men noticed. And I was. But I also wasn't kind. I wasn't loyal in the quiet ways, the ways that count when no one else is watching. I never physically cheated. But I flirted with the idea so often it stopped being a boundary. It became a routine. And I never saw it. Not until the night he left. Not until he didn't even sound mad. Just exhausted. I sat down on our bed. My bed now. And for the first time, I realized what I'd done to him. He wasn't dramatic. He didn't make scenes. He just left because he had to. I picked up one of his old hoodies from the hamper, the one he wore when we watched movies. It still smelled like his cologne, the one I teased him for never changing. I curled up in it and cried harder than I ever had, because I knew he wasn't trying to punish me. He was just protecting the last of himself, and I didn't know if he'd ever come back. I just hope he has it in him to forgive, to look past all of this. Now every time I hear the front door creak from the wind, my heart jumps, just for a second. But it's never him. His toothbrush is still in the holder, his shoes still by the door. He didn't take anything, just left, and maybe that's worse, because he left room for hope, but not a promise.